I think we'll just wait. Morning, everyone. Just wait another minute or so, and then we'll get started with our topic today on fraud and risk analytics. So just another minute or so, and then we kick off our session today.
So, order.
All right. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session on fraud and risk analytics. Today and another 3 more sessions, and we should be able to get a good hand of what we need to understand about this ever dynamic topic on fraud and risk analytics. So my name is Umesh Kothari, and we'll be doing these sessions together. Just a couple of housekeeping rules. If you can, it will be fantastic. Kindly keep your cameras on and mics off, because that's what we want to do. It's the more interactive it is, the better it is. Otherwise, it gets quite boring to just talk to a wall. So kindly do that and when you need to contribute something, discuss something, kindly keep your mics off and wholeheartedly and generously contribute to these sessions. It's through contributions and interactions that we exchange ideas, reinforce our understanding, and also build on the learnings that we've already achieved and already got through our sync model, as well as through the discussions that we're going to be going through. So let's get started with what we need to do with the topic on fraud and risk analytics. Now, fraud and risk analytics is a dynamic field. It is ever increasing. We, for example, have become much more mindful about it than we were, say, 10 years ago. Today, we have an auditor's eye. We look at it skeptically. We do question before we get into a transaction. Nevertheless, there are those moments of vulnerability, and with those moments of vulnerability, there are slip ups. And through the slip ups, what we have is we have problems. That's what we need to be mindful about. Yeah. I'm not sure what your working background is, but if you're into the field of analytics and if you're into the field of risk management, then fraud and risk is one part of the work that you will always be doing, whether you like it or not. And also whether you're in any business development related roles, or even when you're in your operations kind of roles, when you analyze any customer portfolios, you must bear in mind whether these portfolios or these profile of customer groups that you have, are they prudent? Are they contributing to profit, or are they contributing to risks to the extent which is over the risk appetite that you would like to get? Yeah. So governments have also become much more stronger now with a lot of regulatory requirements put in place to protect the interest of the community, the interest of the customers. But we, organizations also, I feel, need to pull up and be more vigilant and be more foolproof as far as their process and policies are concerned, especially with regards to fraud and risk. Because yes, we do understand that there has to be a balance between risk and profits, but not at the cost of making it over ever risky portfolio that it's going to cause a lot of problems to people, especially your staff and your customers. Yep. So any examples, any thoughts that happened with fraud, or any you or your near and dear ones, your family, friends, colleagues did and encounter this thing in the last whatever, any incident that anybody of you would like to share? You can talk. Credit card fraud, Samir, absolutely. You or your any people that you know?
Hi, Professor. Good morning. My name is Braj Kishore Kamal. I
Morning.
recently placed credit card for my debit card transactions. Okay, it was
Mm-hmm.
ICICI Bank, and
Mm-hmm.
recently I just registered a complaint on this, and then all it was a very small amount, like 1,500 rupees or 300, 800 rupees was getting uh, trying withdrawn from my account, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that was on a timely basis. It was going on for 2 years, and I never noticed that. But recently I did a like I got a message. I was just checking out the transaction on my Google Pay. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and I found out that Saturday I never went outside. I was sitting here at home, and why this transaction is showing up like that was close to 800 rupees. And then I could recall, and I checked for all the transactions, and I
Mm-hmm.
found out that from 2 years there was like similar amount, like 800, 1300, 200 was getting deducted. So
Right.
that is
And
something.
anything happened from the bank, or they said
No,
nothing
no,
to you?
they
I
had
mean,
given me a
you.
time of 45 days. It's
Mm-hmm.
not over yet. So I had blocked all those accounts, internet banking, everything. So,
Mm-hmm. And
uh,
is it Paytm? Sorry, is it OTP driven, or just getting debited?
I was not getting any OTP. It was saying that the transaction was from Google Pay. Okay.
Okay.
But
Okay.
there was no OTP, nothing was involved. So
There was
I
no
don't know
OTP,
how it
nothing was
happened.
involved. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, interesting. Just recently, last month, actually, a friend of mine was expecting something from the post from the US, and obviously he was expecting a delivery. And there was a message on his on his phone saying, that your packet has arrived at the post office. Kindly, open the link and arrange for delivery. So when he opens up the link, it says that you need to arrange for delivery and you need to pay some amount in dollars for custom clearance. And I think it was about 20 or $25 kind of money. So, in that moment of spur, knowing that he was expecting a parcel or something from the US, and he clicked on the link and he, gave the details. They asked for an OTP. He gave the OTP, and the OTP did not go through, and they said OTP has not gone through. Please restart the thing. So he restarted it, did the OTP, and until this time, I think he did it about 3 times, and there was no intimation from the bank or from anybody saying, what's happened. And then he got all the three intimations in the same go. And interestingly, it was not $25 that was processed, but it was about $2,500 that were processed with each transaction that went through. Obviously, this is a matter of concern. So he raised it with the bank. The bank said nothing doing. We can't do anything about it because it was your OTP and you gave the OTP, and therefore you're liable to it. We have nothing to do with it. He filed a police complaint, and from his whatever $7,500, he could get about $2,000 or $2,500. The rest are all foregone. But again, those are moments of slippages, and fraudsters no longer, I think in Bridges example also, the fraudsters are not going to be doing, gone are the days when they will do the transactions with big amounts. They normally do smaller transactions, multiple transactions of smaller amounts. And if they are usually lucky with going through it, and that causes a concern, because if it's a small amount, you don't notice it. In many cases, you don't even know about it till it gets, deducted probably on a monthly basis. It's only when these kind of things happen, then you become vigilant and you become far more educated about it. But if we were so good, then fraud would not have happened. And if of course, fraudsters are also evolving, if you so as much as we are evolving, and therefore it becomes very, very important for organizations not just to detect fraud but to mitigate fraud. I'm not saying to prevent fraud, we can't do that because you're here to do business, but you need to lessen it to the extent that it is manageable and not eating into your profits in a manner which is quite worrisome for the organization itself. Yeah. So that is what happens, and of course everybody around us, all the banks, governments are giving us a lot of education, are telling us a lot of ways and means of how we should be doing things, but we need to be very, very mindful about it, and not let even a single slippage happen from our end as individuals, as consumers, and need to protect our things. A lot of people, for example, if you're transacting something on the internet, you have a different credit card with a smaller credit limit so that you can do your transactions on the internet, and that's perfectly fine. You have different limits given to different people in the family on your credit card. And as we are getting more and more cashless, as we are getting more and more digital, the risk of this is also increasing, and we need to be just very, very mindful about it so that we don't fall prey to the fraudsters. Yeah. So with that in mind, guys, what is this core? What is this session? What are these sessions all about? These sessions basically address three key objectives. The course is broken down into fraud and risk. Both cannot be, what should I say? Both cannot be isolated, and therefore fraud and risk goes together. What we will be understanding is what are the types of frauds that happen, in the different business fields, and how can we combat them. Credit card fraud is the most commonly associated fraud because it involves transactions, it involves payments, and therefore we'll be dwelling upon that a little bit more and talking about the risks and the data that are available at the different stages of onboarding, managing the customer, and also when the customer becomes delinquent at the different stages of the credit card life cycle. There are a couple of sessions on risks, and there we will be talking about the different types of risks. How can you come up with a risk policy or a risk framework, and how can you prioritize your risks that you as an organization want to be focusing on in your calendar year. And these obviously prioritization of risks get revised every year. So 2 sessions on frauds and 2 sessions on risks. That's how the 4 sessions are planned for. I have tried to put a lot of activities where we will be using our breakout rooms, where we will be looking at certain problems, certain case studies, to facilitate discussion, interaction, and participation. There will be some videos to look at things also, to understand things better. All that I want from you guys in return is to partner up so that we can make these sessions as interactive and as engaging as possible, so that we can learn from each other, and we can question each other, we can we can understand from each other, and we can make it a win-win for both of us, so that when we finish the sessions, we proudly can say, hey guys, or hey us, we invested in this and did not waste our time in this. And that's what would be the objective, the end objective after the 4 sessions thing, during the course that we have been doing. If you believe that you're not understanding anything, don't wait in silence or suffer in silence. Kindly ask, raise your hand, and say, sorry, but I don't get it. If it's too fast going, please stop it. If it's too slow going, kindly say that let's pick up speed now. We are good with it. We can move forward. So, we need to determine how best are we going to learn this during the sessions that we're going to be having. So one more time, if you have your phones talk about Galaxy, Android, iPhone, kindly put your names through. At least let me get to know the names of people who've attended my sessions. And one more time, when you're discussing, highly recommended to keep your cameras on and mics off, unless you're making a point in the classroom. And if there are a lot of people, wanting to answer, a good approach would be to just raise your hand and we'll come and ask you your views about it. So this is how the 4 sessions are planned. As I said, the first 2 sessions focus on fraud and types of fraud, different types of fraud. And we will be talking about the project as well during probably if you've gone through that in session 1. I will pick it up in session 2 so that we can go through it and address any concerns, clarifications that you may have. And we'll pick that up again in session 4 in case there are any questions that you may have regarding your project. It's a very interesting project, guys. Very, very, relatable uh, uh, to the industry. So I'm sure when I looked at it, and it was quite interesting, and you would find it quite interesting and rewarding as well. The second session was entirely dedicated to credit card types and frauds, and I will be sharing with you uh, a bank's credit card fraud strategy. What are they doing about it? And that's what we'll be talking about. Session 3 and session 4, as I had said, is dedicated to risks, types of risks in business, and mostly in financial services. And that's what we'll be talking about in session 3 as well as in session 4. With wrapping up with any clarifications that you may have about the course, about the content, and of course we'll summarize the learnings. And at the end, we'll be also addressing any project related queries that you may have. Yeah. So in all of these situations, guys, you've done an Uber or you booked a cab to go somewhere. You check your emails every day. I mean, now we have it done on the phone also. So practically every 15 minutes. E-commerce is on the rise, and it's expected to boom over the next 5-7 years. And that's one of the classic channels that we as consumers are wanting to, place our orders from. And hence we do place an order through an online medium as opposed to an in-store medium, even for our day-to-day items such as groceries. We use our debit and credit card for our purchases. In our example, Brits talked about the debit card, and you will also use a credit card. Just a little bit of advice there: when we use a credit or a debit card, avoid using debit cards here to the extent that you can. No need to use debit cards, because the problem with using a debit card is if it's not a genuine transaction, the money is immediately gone out of the account because it's a debit card, versus a credit card where it takes time for the credit to happen. And I think by international laws, across markets, it's about 24 hours of time before the amount gets credited or accepted by the merchant. So if the bank is strong enough, they can do something about it within 24 hours. If they're really wanting to reverse the transaction. So all these activities, needless to say, are they susceptible to fraud? The answer would be all of them, not one of them, two of them, but all the activities that we just talked about here. Are they susceptible to fraud? And the answer is Rather, the obvious answer is absolutely yes. And why yes, people? Again, anybody? Why yes? Because they're digital transactions. Okay, but email is not a transaction. So why yes? Okay, good. So in the second case, if there is no monetary transaction, but there is loss of data or loss of information, and if data is the new oil, information compromise is not something that you would want of your customers as customers. We went through this on Facebook quite a lot, and a lot of us have stopped posting on Facebook because of data integrity issues. So if you know that the bank that you're banking with is not going to keep your data secure, we're going to stop banking with that bank because our data is not secured and our profile information is not accurate, or is not protected, and in that case we will stop banking with the bank. So consumer data protection is an important uh, consideration for us to continue a relationship with or to choose a bank also, for that matter. So you, in the other cases, there is an exchange of money being involved through a credit card, and that is what it is. It is therefore fraudulent. But in the case of the second one, as rightly said by some of you, it is associated with information, and that information is power, and that power can be exploited. And hence, all of these are monetary versus non-monetary aspects, but they do lead to fraudulent behavior, because you are tampering with personalized data of your customer, especially in the case of a non-monetary transaction. Okay, good. So how would you define fraud, people? If we were to have a definition of fraud, what would you say fraud is? Fraud is, according to you? Yeah, any entity, yes, absolutely. Something abnormal, data or monetary cheating. So it's so good to hear all of you, because the definition itself talks about a negativity. And therefore, through all the definition, what we can say, or if you were to understand it, is we say it is a crime, or it is a misconduct, it is a behavior which is not acceptable. Yeah. So yes, it's wrongful, it's criminal, and all these words are absolutely correct when we talk about fraud. So there are these definitions coming to you from the FBI, and who better than the FBI will be able to help us define this? The FBI says it is not an honest activity, not an honest act, so it's dishonest and it's not legal. This is carried out by individuals as well as by institutions to provide a income which is not regular. So an irregular or a preferential income to obviously individuals and obviously to the organizations who support these things. The important aspect here is it is considered as dishonest and illegal. The other definition from the Oxford area, we have it as saying it is a wrongful and a criminal deception which is intended by, it's not unintentional, it is intentional, to get some kind of gain that you would like to gain out of this. So it's dishonest, it's wrongful, and it's therefore a criminal activity. And that is what we talk about when we look at fraud or fraudulent business activity. That's what we are wanting to look at. Okay, so why is it important? We know that it's important, but let's try and build some, data around it to see the gravity of the situation. It's a business to many also in practically all the countries of the world, developed, developing, or underdeveloped. Companies on an average, if you were to look at it, lose about 5% of their revenues towards fraud or monetary loss because of fraud. And this is causing a problem because, if we were to say, don't, go with this bank or that company because there is more fraud happening there. As consumers, we'll be very vigilant when dealing with that company. So the reputation or image of that company is at stake. Obviously, customer satisfaction will also be impacted, and obviously employees engagement will also be impacted, because just imagine at the end of the year, you get a message from HR, you will not be getting any bonuses because the profits that we've got have been used towards the frauds that have been committed by our external forces, and we have to account for that. And what a waste of effort is what a lot of us feel. So all of this is impacting the image, and hence we need to ensure that these criminals or these fraudsters don't get away with murder in an easy manner. Okay, why is this happening? It's happening, of course, because e-commerce is on the rise. But look at some interesting information that we have about it, and that is uh, so much of data is created around us with the cloud technology on your side. Data storage is becoming, not a difficult task. And with data storage, what happens is, look at the amount of data that exists that you deal with. You have 48 hours of video that is uploaded to YouTube every minute. 40% of large organizations are saying that analyzing critical data is their biggest challenge. So 247 billion emails sent, 80% are spams. All this is adding, contributing to fraud that can be created by these intelligent fraudsters with the amount of data that is around you. And because the data is happening around you, a lot of us are into data analysis because we want to carry out, for example, advanced analytics to be able to answer those questions at business which were not getting answered earlier. Social media is on the rise, and therefore social media is also used to analyze data. By the way, social media has two purposes. There is social media fraud. Okay, that's one part of it. The other part of it is social media is used to track the behavior of fraudsters through a network that they perform. They also interact using social media, and that is used to decipher fraud. There is an interesting video where the insurance company looked at the, what should I say, they looked at the video posted on the Facebook account of the claimant. And the interesting part there was they found out that the car that they were, the claiming to be an accident and claiming millions of dollars as insurance claim was actually a car that the driver had banged again intentionally. And the insurance company then did not go ahead and did, reimburse that claim. Of course, there are pros and cons to it. The con being every information that you is there on the social media, do you believe in it? Because maybe the information is dated, could be, but you got to do your investigation before you honor such commitments or such sources rather. And but nevertheless, what is important is structured and unstructured data both help you in detecting and therefore preventing frauds. Plus, technology is on your side. You can do it into basic Excel. Plus, you can invest into any algorithms that you would like to do through machine learning, and this is going to help you detect fraud at a much faster rate so that you can prevent frauds from occurring in the future. These are the industries which are most susceptible to fraud. Cab aggregators. Why? Because obviously there is a money exchange being involved. You book an Uber, you book a cab, and then you are preloading it with your credit card details so that the money gets credited from there. Internet firms such as Google, because they have spam emails and they can it can be an irritating factor when you get a lot of spam emails. It bothers customers and therefore disrupts the experience. Retail with online on the rise, you do have online payments being made, and that is an exchange of money. So therefore, that is susceptible to fraud. And lastly, banks. I mean, the key ones. There are others as well. The banks with the use of credit cards and debit cards, the loans that they give, the interest that they charge on credit cards for non-payment of minimum amounts also, all of these are therefore more susceptible to fraud than the rest of the industry. Something interesting now, guys, if you are really interested in a fraud and risk analytics as a career, post this course. If you want to do something in to pump up your profile, what you need to do is you need to closely monitor the white pages and sign up on their newsletters for the Association of Certified Fraud Institute, and they have annual features coming out of educating us about fraud. They also have courses that you would like to be certified with that adds a lot of value to your experience. So if in that kind of setup, definitely go through these guys, and they are the apex body globally for fraud and risk. So according to their 2020 report, the 2021 is not very different, by the way. The top five industries in terms of the volume of fraud committed, banking is right on top, then the government, then manufacturing, healthcare, energy, and retail. In the dollar terms, in value terms, it is mining, energy, real estate, telecom, and construction. Can anybody tell me why do you think there's a difference in the volume and value for the industries that we're seeing here? Why aren't they the same industries in both cases? Any reasons why? Yeah, any reason why? Foreign stakes, the question basically is why is there the number of industries, the profile of the industries in terms of number of cases versus in terms of value? Why do you think they're different? Why isn't banking also high in terms of dollar value? Not penalties. It's the same philosophy, guys. If a premium retailer sells, lower volumes, but they make higher values versus non-premium retailers, they make higher volumes but lower value. Okay, so the value of a fraudulent transaction on an average will be far less than the value of a fraudulent transaction in the case of mining. So mining may have one fraudulent transaction, but it'll be a huge amount. Wherein in the case of banking industry, there'll be many in terms of volume, but the value will not be very high. And that's the difference in terms of the industries that we look at. The dollar stake is very high, even though the volumes are very less in these industries that we look at. Why are some industries more susceptible than the others? Because of the style and the operations that they are getting into. And, for example, in many cases, especially in the manufacturing and construction industry, employees are trusted, and there might be a employee or a group of employees who are trusted a lot, and they are given a higher authorization limit or a limit to be able to approve transactions, and that can lead to a slippage in terms of creating a fraud. Mining industry also, you require a lot of uh, labor come into the mines, and they require work permits, and they may or may not be your permanent staff. Okay. Some examples of frauds, they are considered as gurus of fraud. In India, there's a Harshad Mehta case. There was a movie on Harshad Mehta also. I'm not sure if you watched it. And there was the John Belfort case, wherein he had also done a similar thing, but at the international stock market levels in 1999. I'm going to show the video of John Belfort. There was a movie made on this also, which is called as The Wolf of the Wall Street. Both movies were great. In case you haven't seen it, strongly recommend that you should see it. There are also, I think, yeah, the season 2 is out. There is a Netflix series on fraud. And the other day I read it in the news that season 2 out of that is also out. And yeah, Big Bull is absolutely correct. And the season 2, when they were doing it, they were trying to do the pranks with the news staff, news as in news staff, news office staff. Some were very good, but a few of them got prey to it, and they were kind of educating it, saying no matter how good the caller is, no matter how sophisticated the caller is, kindly do not give your credit card details, and please do not give the last 3 digits of your CVV number. Okay, so let's watch this. Okay, I'm just going to share it now.
Made in this and money to be lost massively on both sides. You need to be really, really careful.
The real Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, is weighing in on the GameStop and AMC stock craze, warning that those jumping on board the handful of stocks that are going through the roof due to Reddit users are playing with fire. Belfort, who amassed a fortune in the 1990s as a stockbroker in New York City with his own firm before spending 22 months in prison for fraud and corruption, published his memoir, The Wolf of Wall Street, in 2007. That, of course, was adapted into a 2013 film of the same name starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
My name is Jordan Belfort. The year I turned 26, I made $49 million, which really pissed me off because it was $3 shy of $1 million a week.
In an interview with CNN Business, Belfort gave his take on the stocks that are skyrocketing via hype, mostly on Reddit.
If you could prove that they were actually colluding together, then it would be illegal.
The Wolf of Wall Street author and film subject went on to say this.
The problem is that, it's sort of this sort of weird, loose collusion where, one person says, let's stick together and stay strong. Theoretically, that's not legal, but I would doubt that the SEC would try to make a case out of something like that.
Belfort told CNN Business that the average person could actually make a lot of money through the hot stocks, but they could lose it all, too.
It's like a modified pump and dump, because at the end of the day, it will most certainly go back down because it's not trading based on any rational fundamental value.
Belfort cautioned this.
Just remember, every time the market goes up, like GameStop goes up, it's going to get harder and harder to make that next move up because the market cap eventually gets to a point it's just not sustainable.
Around 9 a.m. on Thursday, GameStop took a huge dive down nearly 40%. Belfort said people are going to get hurt, and it will likely be the average lower-income individuals who attempt to catch the golden goose too late.
There are going to be some massive victims in this whole thing, and most certainly, and I think that, frankly, it's already starting. I think some of the brokerage firms like Ameritrade and others have suspended their own internal trading in some of these, ultra hot stocks.
For more on this story, go to thr.com. For the Hollywood Reporter News, I'm Tiffany Taylor.
Okay. So different types of frauds is what we will be talking about now. And the different types of frauds that we're going to be talking about, the first one being data compromise, then phishing, then of course insider threats, and then money laundering. So what do you understand? Let's talk about the first one, data compromise. What do we understand by data compromise? Anybody? Many a times we see our friends and people say that my social media account is hacked. Kindly don't do this or don't do that, and don't entertain any requests. So what do we mean by data compromise? And is that email or message that comes from our friends, is that an example of data compromise? Not enough protection for confidential data, unauthorized access. Anybody else? So absolutely correct, where your identity, your personal information, it could be your password, it could be your name, it could be your, even biometrics to a great extent, are compromised and are stolen, personal identifiable information. And I think there was a movie at the Hollywood level, I think it was Liam Neeson's Starer, wherein he had to prove in the movie that it was him. And there was a fraudster working his way up to commit the crimes on his behalf using his biometrics as well. And if they were used, it was so difficult for him to prove that that was fraud. And it was quite an interesting one. So yes, that is an example of data compromise. Okay, let's watch it in terms of what it is in detail a little bit more.
That you transact with have elaborate security programs.
You can see the screen, right? Okay.
Spread across many websites throughout the internet. From online banking, credit reports, e-commerce, tax returns, and healthcare accounts, your personal information may be at risk of loss or theft. Most businesses and organizations that you transact with have elaborate security programs to protect your personal information. But this doesn't stop cybercriminals from trying to steal your data. Due to vulnerabilities in software, these cybercriminals can infiltrate and steal not only your data, but potentially thousands of other people's information too. Data breaches and data theft affect millions of people around the world and is on the rise. Many companies have suffered a massive data breach, leading to layoffs, lawsuits, and fraud. Once these cybercriminals have your personal information, they can completely drain your bank account of its funds. A data breach can also result in identity theft, allowing someone else to use credit cards with your name, potentially damaging your credit history. In some cases, data breaches can result in blackmail if the victim was a member of a questionable site or has information they don't want made public. Individual users may be targeted with specifically designed malware that can delete or steal information off of a personal computer. While data breaches can severely impact individuals, businesses and government organizations are usually at a larger risk. Even employees can steal and sell personal information to third parties who use it for criminal purposes. Protect yourself against data breaches by changing your passwords often and using a password manager that generates secure passwords, such as Kaspersky Password Manager. Ensure that any sensitive information that is kept in cloud is well protected and encrypted with the latest security software. Finally, make regular backups of important data on a separate system, such as an external hard drive or cloud, to minimize the risk of losing vital information if a data breach does occur.
Yeah, so obviously that's bad, and we need to be, while we look at monetary things, we also need to look at data protection. And there was a recent paper that I have, that I am rather still working on. It's in its final stages. But one thing that was interesting for me is not customer experience that contributes to digital preferences, but it is the commitment of the regulator and the laws supporting to it, protecting consumer interests, and that is what is contributing for us to use, or confident for us to use, digital means of transactions that we would like to use. So it is not uh, service and the omni-channel experience, but it is the comfort, or it is the confidence that the regulator and the institution that provides. And that I thought was quite an interesting outcome of digital, and therefore that says a lot in itself. As long as you believe that your data is protected, you're going to share it in the first place, and then you're going to use it and transact using that means and forms. Okay. Phishing. Any idea what is phishing based on what you read? Phishing? Anyone? Phishing? Spam emails. Absolutely correct. And yeah, these are not these are not professional. They are fraudulent. They are susceptible to fraud, and these are the emails that go out, and they, for people, act on it also. In the past, a lot of these emails would come and say, hey, you won a jackpot, kindly click on the link below and claim your reward. And a lot of people would do so, in the process give away their personal information as well. Very difficult to prevent it, very difficult to detect it also. User education is strongly, highly recommended to reduce it. And in many organizations, the IT units are educating the staff, even quizzing them to make sure that their understanding is correct on a monthly, quarterly basis of how to identify a phishing email and what to do after you've identified it. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of your organizations may also be doing the same, but detecting and preventing a phishing email is an important task of an organization, largely driven by the IT unit. Okay, sorry, there was a video there. Let's watch it as well. Okay, I'm going to share it now. Okay, yeah. Now just observe this for a minute and see, after you read what you read, do you find anything suspicious in this email, or everything is just fine? Yeah, anyone? Is it all good or is it a issue? Email ID, okay, email ID of the sender, all right. The sender, sjonesbusiness.uk, okay, all right. Anyone else? Or rather, anything else? There is no, thank you. Yeah, there's only dear and there's nothing else after that. That is a good one, Karan. Any others? Multiple spelling mistakes, yes. Mentioned Sam Jones. So what's that? What's the problem there? Sam Jones? Okay, okay, that way. Yes, correct. Good. Good, guys. So obviously, yes, rightly spotted. So therefore, again, reinforcing, the education bit to staff. And I think that's why a lot of companies, this is one part of the training that everybody is doing with their staff on a much more periodic basis than it would have been otherwise. And I think you're expected to take some quizzes on it also to certify that yes, you are aware and you fit the criteria very well because you have been certified. So we looked at phishing. Let's look at another one, which is insider threat. Let's watch the video first and then let's talk about it. Yeah. Every time. Yeah, that's to be done.
What really struck me doing this project was the sheer scale of the red flags that organizations are able to ignore. My colleague Scott Sagan at Stanford University and I have put together a book on insider threats. Insiders pose devastating threats to high security organizations around the world. In 2001, right after the World Trade Center and Pentagon attacks, a series of letters containing anthrax arrived at locations at several places in the country. And it took the government years to figure out how this had happened. Bruce Ivins was a scientist at Fort Detrick, the Army's biological defense labs, and he was deeply troubled. While he had signed documents authorizing the organization to look at his medical records, no one ever bothered. The first psychiatrist he ever saw, long before the anthrax attacks, thought that he was the most dangerous patient she'd ever seen in her entire career. And when the anthrax attacks occurred, even though she didn't know he was working with biological agents, she immediately thought, I wonder if that's Bruce. he set off so many red flags. He emailed his own staff complaining about his increasing paranoia and speculating about ending up in the newspaper with a headline, "Paranoid Man in Charge of Deadly Anthrax," and nobody reported that. Even when staff are complaining that they're afraid he's going to hurt them, no further action was taken. Organizations need to have processes in place where this kind of information can be reported easily, where there are incentives for reporting it, and where the investigation processes within the organization are seen by the staff as fair and reasonable. You can learn more about insider threats with detailed case studies, lessons learned, and new data on jihadist thinking and actions relating to insiders at nuclear facilities in a new book, Insider Threats, which is available from Cornell University Press.
Okay, so quickly, let's talk about it. What is insider threat, guys? Threat from a former employee, Kushani? Is it just that, or is it more than just that? Former is X, or can it be from current employees as well? Yes, absolutely. Existing employees as well, all employees, current, former, rightly said, Samir, business partner, all stakeholders, suppliers can all be a party to this part of a crime, or I would say it is an issue. Many times when, especially in banks, what happens is when as you're finalizing your accounts, your half yearly or your annual accounts, what you do is that you prevent your, or warn your staff not to deal on the stock exchange because of whatever insider information that you may have, and you're forbidden from trading into any kind of buy or sell of stocks and bonds. There is a fraud noticed, and many times, for example, at the bank, this was an HR person, as while this person was recruiting people, this person was getting money from the people and was asking it like an idiot. This person was asking the money to be deposited in the same bank that he was working. He was friends with the branch manager, and there were bogus accounts being created and monies were deposited in that account. Now, this was noticed not as a part of the process, but this was noticed when an audit was carried out in the bank. And then they were noticing the account wherein every, multiple times in a month, periodically, there were money getting deposited, small amounts, but there were money getting deposited in the account, that amount rose to such a big number that it was then investigated. Obviously, the person and the nexus was taken into board, and this was therefore spotted. Would you say this is intentional, or this is unintentional behavior from the staff? What would you say? Intentional or unintentional? It's absolutely intentional, right? Can it be possible that insider threats could be unintentional as well? Has that happened? Do you think that can happen? Unintentional. Oh, I'm sorry, I was not aware of it. Does that happen? Yes, it happens. Less of a problem because it is accidental, as they say, but that accidental, when it can become intentional, you never know. It is just that spur of a moment when the thought changes and the intentions therefore also change. So less problematic, but nevertheless need to be having a very close eye on such people as well. So suppose, for example, you go to an exchange house and you want to exchange your rupee into a dollar amount and you want to get dollars to the bank, and you give the teller your Indian rupee notes, and for some reason that note, they take it, they test it, they do all the things, and suppose it is a suspicious note. What happens then to you? What do you think will happen to you? Because you provided that note. Will the bank do anything? Ideally, the bank will not do anything. They're going to ask you to wait and they're going to call the police in. What happens there, that the police is then going to question you as to where did you get this note from? And you say, I don't know, I just got it from XYZ, and there's nothing to do about it intentionally from me. I'm surprised. At that point of time, depending obviously on the country in which you're operating, but in most countries, the police will let you free. We're keeping a close track on you in terms of your behavior, what you do, where you do, how do you get your monies from, and if it is unintentional, accidental, then then they'll catch hold of the person who's given it to you and do the same investigation there. But if it is intentional, then they'll catch the source, you included, and they're going to give actions to it accordingly. So that's how you treat an accidental behavior, to make sure that it does not get repeated again, to go to the source. But if it is intentional, then obviously there are no questions asked. It's straight away a problem. Yeah. So insider, what is the biggest threat of an insider? You want to report something, or a whistleblower as they also call it. What is the biggest threat of a whistleblower or an insider? What do you think it is?
Identity gets revealed.
Identity gets revealed, and therefore repercussions of that are what? Oh, I'm not sure who is answering that.
This is Shirley, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yes, Shirley,
So
what's your answer?
the person gets revealed in the process.
Identity of the person gets revealed in the process, and therefore, what is the threat if the identity gets revealed?
Misuse.
No. They're ill-treated in the organization. They're not treated the same way.
They would
Sorry?
be not treated as right or as they're supposed to be.
Okay. Death threat. Wow, that's quite severe, Samir. Okay. But assuming there's a death threat also, identity gets revealed surely, and therefore that can have repercussions on the work front itself. And as a result of, if you're not sure that if you're a whistleblower and if that whistle is wrongly blown, if what you're saying is not correct, it'll have repercussions on you and you will have to lose your job. And that is what is that biggest stake for people to raise their voice or blow the whistle, as they say. So, here what they have done is they have come up with a law to protect the whistleblower, saying the whistleblower is not going to be removed from work within at least a year of blowing the whistle. No intentional actions or any such incidents will be caused to the person. And if the person reports such things, then the organization is going to be blamed for it and they'll have to pay repercussions on it. So protection of these kind of things become important, especially for a whistleblower whose intentions are to just report something and make highlight these things to the right forum, so that the occurrence of this does not happen again. Okay, but not the organization, but the environment in which you're operating, including the regulatory framework, needs to support it and protect the interest of the employee, is what I would say. Yeah. So insider threats of three broad categories: malicious, which is highly dangerous and intentional, and then you have the careless ones or negligent ones. It's the way that you did not perform a process, and the least harmful would be accidental, but keep a close watch to make sure that they don't get repeated and they don't become negligent or they don't become malicious in the future. Okay. The next one, probably the last of the kind of fraudulent activities, is money laundering. Any idea what money laundering is all about? In fact, in India, every other day there is a case on this nowadays, and it becomes such a hit thing that somebody is caught, somebody is questioned, and money laundering is on the rise. So, what is money laundering? Money laundering is not scams as much, yeah, converting black into white, okay, and therefore the word laundering your money. So unclean money made into clean money is what people say traditionally it is. Any other illegal ways of money into legal ways, yeah, and therefore black into white. And that therefore leads to scams, which a lot of our people nowadays in the news is what we get to hear. And people, politicians, celebrities are all being caught for these kinds of scams that they have created and they have been a part of. Yeah. It's also called as Hawara transactions in the past. It's not legal, it's a criminal act because you're concealing the origin of the money that you're getting from, and also, and also you're concealing the purpose for why you use this money. Most banks have countries that they will not lend to. So if there is anybody now coming from Russia, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Egypt, not Egypt, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, uh, Russia, Ukraine, that's going to be on the watch list now for the political, situation that's around it. And they are going to be going through a lot more scrutiny before the funds are processed, just to make sure that there is no money laundering kind of act and banks have to follow. Now, these rules of countries change periodically based on what the central bank is going to give it to them in terms of lending processes that they have to be mindful about. Yeah. Yes, Ozark is a good show that is around money laundering. Yes, absolutely, and I have watched it, and it is an informational show. Good. So it is called as the Hawara transaction. Hawala meant from the Arabic word meaning transfer of money between two parties, and these two parties are going to exchange the money to carry out a transaction. And as he said, it was dirty money, criminal activity, and the process launder, like laundry, to make it clean. Okay, that's what it meant. Central banks have got to be vigilant about it with laws and regulations that they want to put in place. And there are three activities here: placement, layering, and integration. Okay, so placement involves things like change of currency. If there is a change in the currency, change in the denomination also, and there are multiple cash deposits coming in frequently, that's called as placement. Cause of concern can lead to an issue of money laundering. Layering, aspects like wire transfers, aspects like withdrawing money, depositing money into another bank, and splitting and merging bank accounts are all examples of layering. And finally, integration, creating fictitious or bogus accounts, disguised ownership of assets, and criminal funding for third-party transactions. So money laundering involves these three areas, or which is placement, layering, and integration. Now, please take a picture shot of this and take a picture shot of this: placement, layering, and integration. And we will be discussing this case study. The question that we want to answer is this: what are the different stages of money laundering that you see in this example? Number one. Number two, what can be your features? If you were to design a fraud model, what variables, okay, let's talk about the features, means variables that you would use to design, that you would use as inputs to design a fraud detection model. Okay, so different stages of the money laundering. From these, which are the ones which are evident, and what are the variables that you would be considering to design a model? Clear? Any questions? We will be putting you into a breakout room, and I will want you to discuss this, and then we will discuss it as a class. Take a picture shot of this as well. Okay, and this one. And obviously, this one, make a note or take a shot, whatever you wish to. Okay. Any questions, people? Okay, we've spent about just a couple of things before we move on. We are almost across the half mark. So do we need a quick 10 minutes natural break and then proceed, or are we good to go ahead? What do we want to do as a class? Take a quick 10 minutes, come back and do things, or? Okay, so let's give you a quick 10 minutes and we come back and then we proceed with our discussion on the case study. And also one other question, how was the first hour and 15 minutes that we passed together? Was it useful, insightful, just right, just fast? Any kind of quick feedback will help.
Useful, sir.
Yes, hello. Okay, good. Nice. Okay, nice to note that on the chat. Anybody wants to talk about it? Somebody was, I don't know who it was. All right. Good. Glad that it is seen as positive. So let's take a quick 10 minutes, come back and then continue with our discussion. Yeah. All right, people, are we back? Hello, class, we back? Great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you quickly into group breakout rooms. And we are about, I don't know, I thought we were 20 before we went on break. People have decided to go to the beach. All right, but the ones who are here, let's work on it. So I'm going to put you into, I think 3 groups should be fine. Yeah, 3 groups should be fine, 4 each. And we'll give you about 15 minutes to discuss this in the group, and then we come back and discuss it as a class. I will want you to, have a spokesperson nominated who is going to speak on behalf of your group. Yeah. Okay. People who are here, you need to join your breakout rooms. Yeah, they're expecting you there.
Hey guys, I heard from Reshma that we were all in the same room. मैं actually breakfast करने गया था. Hey, Sameep, Santi.
Hi, Vikas.
Hey.
Where were you?
I just told you, I'd actually gone for breakfast. I did not even know कि ये है.
Oh, अच्छा.
When I just reached, I saw Reshma was there. मैंने अच्छा चलो भैया, 2 जनों की टीम रहेगा. फिर हमने बात करी. Then she said कि नहीं, all of us were there.
हाँ.
Then she explained.
रिटर्न हो रहा है ना, मेन रूम में रिटर्न नहीं हो पा रहा है ना.
क्या फिर से बताइए.
मेन रूम में नहीं जा पा रहे हैं अगर ये लीव भी कर रहे हैं तो.
हाँ, या तो हम लोग मेन रूम में हैं.
नहीं, मेन रूम में ही हैं हम लोग अभी एक्चुअली. बाकी
लोग
लोग आए
डिस्कस
नहीं
कर रहे
हैं
हैं पूरा. हाँ, डिटेल में.
आई थिंक बाकी लोग आए नहीं हैं.
अच्छा, आ रहे हैं ना. पार्था आ गया.
क्या था सर ने भी ज्वाइन.
ठीक है, मुझे आगे मत करिए. मुझे वैसे भी यूज केस का कुछ पता नहीं है.
समीप बोलेगा. समीप के
अगले वाले में I'll be there.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, good morning, guys. Good afternoon.
Hey, Partha.
Hey. Yeah, I just joined. I was there and then I dropped off and again joined now. What are we doing now? May I understand?
Say that again.
Yeah, what are we doing now? May I understand that?
I guess we've got different rooms, and I think each of these teams is going to present their findings, their suggestions, and all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great. I think everybody is back now into the main room. So let's get on with it. Any group that would like to go first? Let's talk about the first question first, which is what are the what aspects were visible?
Yeah. So hi Umesh. Hi everyone. Shankar
Hello.
this side. Yeah.
Which room are you, Shankar?
Yeah, this is room 1.
Room 1. Okay.
Yeah. So the room 1 was represented by myself, Sarli, and Braj. We went through the case study, and so what we could see from the case study was that the Chinubai Patel and Company, which was created, it was a fictitious company, and the first glitch we could see was that it was introduced to the bank by the bank manager himself rather than a third-party guarantor. So that is a little suspicious, which should not have been done. Again, the bank account is opened without opening the photograph of the proper due diligence was not done before creating the account. So that is one thing. You could see even the verification of the address was not done by the bank. Physical verification of the address was not done. They could have used some third party or someone to complete that also. And it doesn't mention anywhere whether the bank has done proper validation of the balance sheet and the cash flow of the company to verify the source of the income the company has. So it is not mentioned. So we are assuming that even that was not done properly, that the audited balance sheet were not asked for. They were able to open, they had fixes company in Hong Kong, RP Import and Export, and they were able to remit fund using these fraudulent documents, and a total amount of 80 million was transferred to Hong Kong. So as a group, we could understand like how that Hong Kong thing was done, whether that also was a fraudulent company or that was a legitimate company. Yeah, so that was there. So what we understand is there is multiple layers. Every checkpoint which was there for ensuring the integrity of the transaction was bypassed, and ultimately which that led to the fraud here.
Okay,
Yeah.
so great, Shankar and gang. This is basically regarding an assessment of the case. So can we now talk about it from the point of view of placement, layering, integration? Were any features that of fraud or any discussions that you just made fit into any of these three sources of money laundering? Yes, room one.
Yeah. So layering, what I could see is that they created multiple companies to hide the size of the transaction. They created multiple companies for that. Placement, I believe the way they created the company on a fictitious address, and yeah. Koshani, would you like to pitch in? Oh, Surly, would you like to pitch in?
So, hey, Braj here. I was also the part of this group. So
Okay.
I felt that the proper integration was the mission.
Guys, both of you are saying I felt. Is it I felt or we as a group felt?
It's we as a group felt, yeah.
So we as a group felt that proper integration was missing from the bank side, because they did not follow the due diligence that was to be. So they did not even check the background history or the cash inflow from where the money is coming in, where the placement of the company is. So I think as a part of placement, they have not checked from where the cash flow is coming in. As a part of integration, they have not seen that where the company is located, if that company is actually legal or not. That was not checked.
Yeah.
And layering can be that because ultimately the funds was going to one particular owner, but it was layered, it was divided into various brands, like it was transferred to various names as such.
Correct. So the wire transfer,
wire transaction was on a different company name, but ultimately it was going to a single person.
Okay, correct. Okay, good. Room 2, room 3, anybody would like to add to those features of sources of illegal money laundering, placement, layering, and integration?
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Good afternoon. I am Samip Kundu from room 2. Reshma, Vikas, Sayanti, and I was in room 2.
Can we at least have your camera on while you're speaking, because it becomes better to see the face and the name?
Hi, sir.
Okay, so now it becomes clear as to who I'm dealing with. Yeah, all right, good.
So Reshma, Sayanti, Vikas, and I was in room 2. And while going through the case study, we realized that there are all three stages where can be brought into this case study. We can say that there was the place, there is a we can consider layering, because there are wire transactions that were made from the Nariman Point branch to Hong Kong. There is integration because as the first point says, that creating fictitious or bogus accounts, and it is clear that this account was brought by the manager and it was not verified by the bank, and it is mentioned that the address the company doesn't even exist. And again, we can bring to placement, because there was, we can say, there was a change in denomination, because money was taken somewhere from India to China, and there is a change also in the currency from Indian currency to dollars. And another thing that we have noticed is regarding the second part of the question is we need to ensure more checkpoints. Right from opening the account, we need to validate everything properly. That is one way to make the model robust. Second thing, when there is transactions that are in high numbers or out of the country, or the value is very high, we need to check what is there something wrong. Because this was brought into notice after a long time, which is something similar to what we saw in case of SBI or Yes Bank. So that is the discussion that we had, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Great. Room 3, anything that you wish to add?
Good morning, all.
Morning.
Morning, sir. Me, Kaushani, Snehal, and Abhishek are there in room number 4, room number
3.
And we have discussed with all this case, sir. So first of all, the first question is about the what is a. We have jotted down the 3 points as a placement, layering, and integration. So Kaushani is also joined with that. Deposit. First of all, the placement is deposit illegal money to the another account. So that things happen by the company because the fraud account opened and transfer the money from India to Hong Kong. Second is the layering. They have used the wire transfer and cash, different type of the cash deposit in the account, and the splitting the denomination and hide there the origin of the fund and moving the fund to the financial transaction to another account.
Okay.
Third is the integration is a like the creating the illegal action and illegal proceeding is happened there. And second question I have to come there. Why?
Second, hold on a minute. Yeah. So Samir, all 3 is what you highlighted, right? In terms of features and things. Yeah.
Just a minute, sir. Kaushani is also joined there. Kaushani, you can explain it.
Okay.
Yes, Samir, I think you covered all the points under the layering, the placement, the layering, and the the integration part. So integration was basically that they made those 4 fraudulent accounts, and like the bank manager also did not check into that. So there were 4 accounts that were made, and the layering, obviously, like the origin of the funds were like it was funded through another account. So that was there. And the second question part, I think Snehal is going to take it up. So Snehal, probably you can
Second, just hold on for a minute. Yeah. So basically, if we were to summarize these parts, I've just made notes. I'll share it after we talk about question 2. But all the 3 features are visible in the money laundering case here. So under place, things like cash deposits were made. There were currency exchanges also, changes that we saw. In terms of layering, we saw wire transfer of money, and we saw deposits of money being put in the other accounts, and those were the different accounts that they deposited in another bank as well. And lastly, in the integration, we say that third-party funds were used, and obviously these funds were seem to be done for not illegal activities. Yeah,
and there were bogus accounts that were created.
There were bogus accounts that were created, and that should raise a lot more suspicion than would have been otherwise. And therefore, as rightly said by all the 3 groups hinting at it, that this is a very strong case of a very loose maker and checker system. When you have so many branches, people talk about decentralization. So decentralization versus centralization, that's the fight. But nevertheless, this leads to a big loophole with regards to the maker checker system, and that needs to be corrected to avoid this in the future. Okay, so that basically is the summary of the first question that we put forward, and hence every and all parameters lead to the fact that it's a classic case of money laundering causing the profitability or impacting the profitability of the bank. Now let's move on to the second question. The second question was basically, if you were to design a model, what were the variables or the features that you would put in place, or would you consider to detect and prevent frauds?
So can we explain?
Yes, go ahead.
Kaushani, you and me explained it, sir. In this robust model, if we have to create, so we have to create the AML model, anti-money laundering model. So in this models, many of the parts come there, like type the first of all, the law. Strict law should be made by the government and also the individual companies, corporates. The regulations, key regulation. Nothing is happened from their side. Second, for the know your customer, right now many of the banks and the financial institution, they know the customer and they fill the KYC forms. Transaction also monitoring. Regular transaction is happen from if the suspicious transaction happened by regular auditing is going on from the inside internal and also the external parties. Individual company should make some protocol key like the specific fix there something the transaction limit. So if they need the higher transaction from the inward or outward, they need a proper signatory authority or either the board member, board of director, they have to sign and take the decision. And company and the banking systems made a robust technology like using the machine learning models and the technologies like new technologies which is reduce this type of the transactions and protect us.
And protect is a good word. Yeah, good.
Kaushani, you can explain if you have some mind.
Yeah, I mean, you covered all the points, but I think in this part, Snehal had something to say. So, Snehal, do you want to pitch in here?
Yeah, I can. So few of the points that we discussed, although some have already been covered by Samir, but we discussed about having a regular training at the bank's end for their employees, so that they are aware of such cases and the repercussions. Regular auditing by the banks themselves, so they find out if there are any other transactions, similar transactions that are happening. One important point is implementing KYC for all the customers and enforcing it. And then two other points are one is to implementing by using technology, we can implement AI models to detect the real time as well as asynchronous outlier transactions. And RBI or any other top level institutions, they are proactively monitoring any currency conversion transactions.
Good.
And we can also probably just, I don't know if it was mentioned, but we can also probably take into account that the employees are regularly in a way trained, or like there are refresher trainings, so that people also are, there's a check on the integrity of the employees as well, because in this case the manager did not go through the given protocols that were already in place. So that should also be part of that entire process, or the robust process that we are talking about. That's it.
Wonderful. Any other rooms?
Hello, this is Raj again from room 1. Actually, I think one point was missing. What from that group is that, like, if bank employees knowingly doing something, right, there should be something to provision the bank employees that where the transaction is going on. So there should be someone above the bank managers who is actually looking at the bigger chunk of transaction that is going on. Right.
So that I think, Braj, would be a
sorry,
maker. That I think would be a part of your process, maker checker systems.
Yeah. So that we have already covered that. If something is a suspicious, something is a bigger transaction from the happened by the bank on the company side, that is checked by the auditors, regular auditing and.
Perfect. So both of this as part of a policy, part of a process that you would do. So so one recommendation is have robust processes. The second recommendation is probably go on a rampant to educate your employees to handle these kind of frauds, and then blow the whistle. The third is develop use technology and develop a model. Now let's look at the third part in detail. When you develop a model, what features, of course, there are a lot of features, but what features would be critical for you to consider in the model so that you are able to detect fraud promptly?
The amount of transaction.
So when you say amount of transaction, there are two things there. Is it the amount and volume or both? So is it the frequency and amount, or is it both?
Actually, it should be both. Actually,
yeah. Okay, so it should be both. It cannot be only amount, because as we saw, low amounts can also lead to fraud, and therefore frequency of transaction and amount of transaction should be in our model. Very good. Any other?
Probably that can also be like regulated or fixed based on the industry. Like where a particular industry can have a larger amount of transaction or a larger volume of transaction, value of transaction. So
Correct.
that can
So
also be fixed industry to industry.
So the third variable that we will introduce is the profile or the firmographic or the industry of the client or the customer. Okay. So industry, operating in, value of the transaction, and frequency of the transaction.
And so if I can pitch in, so from group 2, we also had another point. From an implementation perspective, we also thought that maybe we can bring in combination of machine learning with blockchain. And why we wanted blockchain was all of us felt that, so these are, you've got several nodes here. That if you want to think of banking outbound transactions as nodes, we want to make sure that we implement a centralized regulation across all the nodes, make sure that centrally the core regulation is implemented across all nodes. And then we can have a geography specific overlay on top of it. So for example, APAC is a very good example. China does not expect that its data leave its borders. Even for controlled entities such as things that they think they control, like Taiwan, they don't expect the data even related to Taiwan be beyond their borders. They're okay with accepting Japan as one of the regions where data can reside. Safe harbor, for example, is another law where EU does not expect data to go through US servers. So we thought we'll implement a centralized rule regulation using blockchain across all nodes, and then we'll have a geo-specific overlay on top.
Okay. So you are talking about type of technology, right? If I also understand this correctly.
Type and type of technology and manner of implementation.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Good. Anyone else?
Yeah. One more point I have. We can also implement the multi-factor authorization using OAuth 2.0. So that will also regulate these kind of fraudulent transactions.
Correct. And that I will add under the process that we are going to put as part of maker checker systems that you will implement. Good. Okay, good guys. So I've made some points down as we discussed it. I'm going to put that up here. And placement, obviously we talked about it, layering, integration, the features of the model, frequency, client profiling, we said industry, but a whole lot of things in terms of whether regular, irregular, age of the client, the demographics of the client is also important. Send receive from high risk geographies, which is, like, are you dealing with industry, are you dealing with not just industries, but markets or countries which are high risk? What is your cash transaction purchases? Now, in this modern day world, people don't bring in loads and loads of money for cash deposit or for cash withdrawals, both. And therefore, those go as a red alert. So if you were to withdraw money above a certain limit within the bank, you need to give them prior intimation so that they can arrange for it as well. So, but yes, so these and many more, but just in the interest of time, these features should definitely be included in our model that we're going to be putting in. Now, over the years, initially we used to have about 4 or 5 features or variables, as we call it. Today, those variables amount to about 12 to 15 on an average. A model has about 12 to 15 variables to be considered, to be, highlighting, to be calculating the risk that you want to calculate because of the fraud that you want to prevent, obviously, as a result of you detecting it. Visualization becomes important. So how can you visualize it? Of course, there are trend analysis that you will do to make sure that your fraud detection has increased over a period of time. And one of the best things to detect fraud is your statistical tools. It's called as descriptive statistics, and it is the outlier detection. So you can do it at the portfolio level, no need to do it at the customer level. But if you do it at the portfolio level, you're able to spot the outliers. And as you spot the outliers, you've got to detect or investigate those in a little bit more detail so that you can detect any anomaly and work around it. Yeah. So it's a real case study, that it is a real incident that has happened. And I'm glad that our discussions were very, very meaningful and rich with regards to the topic that we are talking about, and classic case of money laundering. Yeah. So good, guys, well done in terms of discussing and bringing this onto board to enrich the discussions as a class. Let's move on to talking about fraud detection. And this is a survey from KPMG trying to talk about what have they done to detect fraud. So about 70% said that they are monitoring transactions and therefore they're classifying them as risks or not risks. So they, of course, use a technology to do so. 67% said that they look at biometrics, and biometrics is also important. There was a case in point, don't remember the name of the CEO, a lady in Silicon Valley. Because of her voice modulation changes, she had committed a lot of fraud because she gave wrong instructions to people to follow. And as a result of which, this got noticed, and then obviously she had to bear the consequences. So biometrics is an important source of fraud detection. 63% said transaction monitoring, which becomes very, very important. It could be rule-based, it could be machine learning, it could be a combination of both, but they do monitor these transactions on a far more frequent basis than otherwise. And lastly, behavioral biometrics, which is a 33%, which basically talks about when the person called in, did he give his, did he go through the check protocols of the call center, or when he was at the branch, did he go through the checks that were required? What was his behavior in terms of, expressing or identifying his identity? Yeah, so that is important. This is what people have been doing globally with regards to detecting frauds. Obviously, what's also important, which some of you have rightly expressed, and we have to reiterate this, this is at the other end what organizations do, but at the other end, you must come up with regular, rigorous, continuous ways and means of educating the customer. Yeah. How do banks identify this fraudulent activity? 89%, do it as a customer. From the customer transactions that they're doing, 71% have manual ways and means of doing this. And that's quite a large number, but at least the solace there is that they do it. 82% have automated systems. Internal auditors is about 58%. Now, in every organization, therefore, you have risk and audit as two independent functions. And audit is definitely supporting risk to be able to spot the anomalies that they would be considering otherwise. 68% blow the whistle, and that's through a whistleblower. So they have whistleblowers. They have strong policies for whistleblowers to encourage and promote this. And 55% use a third party for them to be able to, detect frauds, like a Protivity for risk, or for a consulting firm to be able to spot the risk analysis in terms of fraud analysis as well. In this case, this survey is from KPMG. There's three kinds of analysis that we would have heard: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. Now, very, very popular in fraud as well. What do we understand by descriptive analysis? Yeah, what do we understand by descriptive analysis? Anybody?
So it would be using EDA to understand what's happening currently.
Okay, and what's ETA?
It's exploratory data analysis in terms of data science and AI.
Okay, so it's exploratory. Is it only that, or is it something else also?
As far as I know, it's exploratory.
Okay, fine. Any others on descriptive? Any data analysis, including fraud, will not start without descriptive analysis. That's the base of any analysis. It helps you understand everything that's happening with the data. No analyst can do anything advanced or mediocre if you don't know what your data is all about, structured or unstructured. So exploratory data analysis, or EDA, as was mentioned by Snehal, only amplifies it further, that you want to do all and sundry kinds of analysis to be able to familiarize yourself with the data, to be able to understand what is going on with this data. And the biggest outcome that you want to get out of descriptive analytics is to spot anomalies, to spot any outliers. And if there are any outliers that you spot through descriptive, then those go in for further investigation. So that is one of the biggest reasons or objectives why you do descriptive analytics. What do we mean by predictive analytics? Predictive analytics?
It is
So
something
basically,
we can prediction from some trend, some particular trend. Let's say if something is happening, this is going to be resulted, or this is going to happen. So that's some kind of prediction based on data is predictive analysis.
Yeah, so it's about the future. So if I am detecting fraud today, I want to prevent fraud from happening tomorrow, and that can best be done through predictive analytics. The technique that is commonly used here is regression analysis. Through a multivariate regression analysis, you're able to do that, whether it's in a classic format or in a sophisticated tool, but you are able to catch that and predict that. To the extent some organizations claim to fame is, if you provide us the variables rightly, we should be able to predict it to the extent of 95%. Yeah. Yes, Snehal?
Sir, to do this predictive analysis, is it necessary that a company should have at least one such incident in the past?
Not necessarily. You can work with variables as well. You can work with assumptions as well, rather than live or real data. So you can predict something based on your trend analysis, based on your behavior towards the data, and based on your assumptions of the data. You can do that as well. That also is a format outcome of descriptive analytics. Yeah. So you need not have an incident, if that is the question.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And what is prescriptive analytics? Prescriptive analytics?
It is what can be done in future to prevent.
Yes, the action plan, the recommendations. And that becomes extremely important for you to look into. And it's all integrated. So you can't have a good predictor if you don't understand the data well today. You can't have a good prescription if you don't understand the data well today, and you don't know what your predictions are going to be achieving at the end of the day. So it's an integrated process, very commonly followed in the field of data analytics, including fraud and risk. And that is a combination of descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. The key role or job of a analyst, including a fraud and risk analyst. Yeah. Why is it important? There's a video that reinforces that, and I will just share that with you in a second. Yeah. Okay, here it is. So, okay, 1 minute. Okay, here it is.
Data analysis for fraud detection. Data analysis technology enables auditors and forensic experts to analyze an organization's business data to gain insight into how well internal controls are operating and to identify transactions that indicate fraudulent activity or the heightened risk of fraud. Data analysis can be applied to just about anywhere in an organization where electronic transactions are recorded and stored. Data analysis also provides an effective way to be more proactive in the fight against fraud. Whistleblower hotlines provide the means for people to report suspected fraudulent behavior, but hotlines alone are not enough. Why be only reactive and wait for a whistleblower to finally come forward? Why not seek out indicators of fraud in the data? That way, organizations can detect indicators of fraudulent activity much sooner and stop it before it becomes material and creates financial damage. To effectively test for fraud, all relevant transactions must be tested across all applicable business systems and applications. Analyzing business transactions at the source level helps auditors provide better insight and a more complete view as to the likelihood of fraud occurring. It helps focus investigative action to those transactions that are suspicious or illustrate control weaknesses that could be exploited by fraudsters. There is a spectrum of analysis that can be deployed to detect fraud. It ranges from point-in-time analysis conducted in an ad hoc context for one-off fraud investigation or exploration, through to repetitive analysis of business processes where fraudulent activity is more likely to occur. Ultimately, where the risk of fraud is high and the likelihood is as well, organizations can employ an always-on or continuous approach to fraud detection, especially in those areas where preventative controls are not possible or effective. Once an organization gets started with data analysis, they usually find that they want to do more and dig deeper into the data. Modern organizations have increased management demands for information, and the audit paradigm is shifting from the traditional cyclical approach to a continuous and risk-based model. Technology therefore offers a range of solutions, varying by the size and sophistication of the audit organization. From ad hoc analysis, through to repeatable automated procedures, and continuous auditing and monitoring, analytics provide insight into the integrity of financial technology, provides more accurate audit reports and business operations through transactional analysis. Thanks for watching. For more videos, visit
Great. Let's continue. So fraud detection is important. We want to detect fraud to find out where are the loopholes, where are the problems, and that is what we need to do on a regular basis. It's not a one-time activity. Along with fraud detection, I think in parallel, we all agree to it, can't agree more, that educating our end users and as a great corporate social responsibility, you need to educate the society for it as well. Yeah. Irrespective of what the outcome is, I think we need to be brave enough, and I think the millennials and the Gen Zs can be a great example for it. They can be brave enough and candid enough to be able to spot something suspicious and highlight it, even if it's a false alarm, but at least it was raised. Yeah. There is a difference between fraud detection and prevention. Besides the spellings, very quickly, what do you think is the difference between the two, detection of fraud and prevention of fraud? Yeah, fraud detection and fraud prevention.
If you detect the fraud, then you prevent the fraud.
Okay, so so prevention is dependent on detection. All right, accept it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so only if you detect can you prevent. Okay, granted.
So detection is something that has already happened and we are finding it out, while prevention is something we are preventing to happen in future.
Very good. So therefore we say that detection is a lag effect and prevention is the lead effect. Okay, which do you think will be more in volumes, detection or prevention? Ideally, yeah. Go ahead, Snehal.
In the initial stages of setting it up, it should be detection, and then in future it would be prevention.
Yeah, it should ideally be aspiring, as rightly said, for prevention, but does not happen that much. So as long as your detection prevention is 60-40, we are good to go. Yeah, but as rightly said, in the initial days, there is a trial and error. No one model fits along. So these variables that you want to include in detection need to be tried, tested, agreed, confirmed, and then passed out and re-examined on a continuous basis so that your predictive analytics to prevent fraud works in a very robust manner. Okay, so prevention will help you put in proper controls in place, proper plans in place, proper procedures in place. Okay, and that is more futuristic. Detection is what has already happened. So an assessment of what has happened, what went wrong, and therefore how can we, prevent of this happening in the future. So both are required. You start with detection with an aim to prevent, but both need to work in tandem for the organization to be achieving it. Yeah. So you must have objectives of detecting frauds and tools and techniques. Ultimately, one of the biggest outcomes of that is to prevent. Your fraud methodologies, or your approaches or strategies for that should be a methodology. What are the variables that you're including in your analysis? And these variables should be reliable and valid. What do we mean by reliable? Reliable means they are error-free. We know that we live in a world of data where we're not sure about whether we need to, is this data 100% accurate or not? But even if it's accurate to the extent of 95% plus, we are good to go. So the data should be reliable plus valid. Valid means all and sundry data that you're using should be able to answer the objective. If it's not answering the objective, it has no meaning to use that into your analysis. It should be rational, logical. It should be able to provide reports, and then it should be able to provide a solution as well in terms of how you're going to detect and prevent frauds. And this is an ongoing, robust process that you can live and work with. So different fraud detection methods, you have rule-based and you have machine learning-based. So rule-based is basically all rules that you're going to put in place to be able to spot the anomalies and report it. Machine learning is more behavioral-based. So if you track a certain behavior, then any anomaly, considering the behavior, is going to be spotted, yeah, and therefore highlighted. Both, in a sense, are iterative. It's not a one-size-fits-all for life. It is multiple iterations to be able to agree and do what you need to. Machine learning is more advanced, does things better, of course, than rule-based, but not all companies can afford machine learning. So you all have to have rule-based. If it's a luxury, you will have machine learning-based models as well. So as an example, if you were to look at an example, if there was an insurance or company, that service provider that wants to, you put a fraud detection model in a rule base, they'll put the conditions saying, if the claimant has the spouse in the age group of 18 to 80, then that gets picked up or highlighted as an anomaly and therefore looked into it. And if they have children above 25 years of age, gets picked up also. In a machine learning based, what you see is that you look at the claims made in the past with their spouse age also. And for some reason, if that is in the age group of 19 to 55 years, then a person with 70 years of age group in a rule-based model is acceptable, gets flagged as an anomaly in a machine learning model as well. Okay, I'm not saying one is better than the other once again, but organizations need to rely on both such models to be able to, of course, detect and therefore prevent frauds. In this particular example, guys, loans dispersed to customers. This is a bank and they were dispersing or giving loans to customers, and the portfolio was shrinking or loss making. So we did an analysis at the portfolio level. We did everything and it was found to be okay. And until later on, there was one variable that struck to light, and that variable was age of the person or the customer. Why was age important for a loan? Because at 60 years of age, you retire. And when you did a deep dive on that analysis, what we found out was about 20% of customers who got a loan in the last 1 year, their average age was about 58 years and the average tenure was 5 years for them. Now, with that said, does that portfolio is that portfolio prone to risk? The answer is yes. So age, which they thought was not a variable to be considered either in rule-based, they were following a rule-based method, was brought into the model because loan and age does have a strong relationship, and in this particular case they did, and therefore you need to do this process to be able to ensure that all the right variables are included into your model. Benefits of machine learning, simple as we can see here. Your rules and data help you to provide answers, and these answers help you to make rules as the outcome for machine learning. So both are an integrated way of working together. It's not that one is overwriting the other. It all comes with resources and investments. We understand that, but we need to be open towards it, and therefore we need to be open towards analysis on the fraud and risk framework. So fraud is reporting into the chief risk officer, and the chief risk officer reports into the CEO. In many companies and industries, by the regulator, for example, in the banking industry, the risk officer cannot report to the CEO. They report independently to the board with a dotted line reporting to the CEO because they don't want the CEO to be influenced. So both risk and audit report to the board directly and not to the CEO. Yeah. Limitations in the machine learning. If it's behaviors during COVID, we were not sure about behaviors of the past. The whole world did not, and neither did fraud world. And therefore, we had to wait until we had enough data to predict anomalies in behavior. There was no data, and therefore, whatever data you got was new to begin with. And therefore, there were limitations more from the environment, more from the macro environment rather than personal limitations to build onto your machine learning rules. But today, as we emerge out of it, we have enough behavioral data for us to build our models robustly using machine learning tools. Great. So that's pretty much what we had to cover today. Very quickly, a recap. We talked about the fraud, importance, emphasis of detecting and preventing frauds, types of frauds, money laundering, insider threat, phishing, and data compromises. We also talked about detecting and preventing frauds and how the two work together with an overview of descriptive, prescriptive, and predictive analytics. Yeah, forming the basis of fraud and risk and forming the task that we were supposed to do on day one of a four-part series. Any questions? Now, I think Pranjay has sent you the feedback for this session. Just want you to take a couple of minutes to fill out that form so that everybody in the room fills one out. We get 100% response rate, and then we can call it as the end of the sessions. So can you take a couple of minutes to fill it out, please? And as you've done it, just tell me that you've done it, so it'll be good. Yes, Nehal, you have a question?
Yes, sir, I do. While you were discussing about real-time and AI-based rules, you mentioned that the AI and machine learning-based rule, not all companies have the luxury to implement that. So what's the reason why not all companies have this?
Firstly, it requires competency, people. Secondly, it requires investments, money. Not everybody has the resources to be able to do both of that. For SMEs, for sure, don't. Mid-sized corporates, no. It is your large corporations. Now, many large corporations, multinationals may, but otherwise, no. They try to, put pressure onto the IT wing internally or outsource it and create their programs themselves. But that also is being done because they want to detect frauds in a timely manner. So yes, rule-based, everybody has it. Advanced machine learning-based tools, not everybody has these kinds of things, is what I have noticed.
Okay, there is a market opportunity for that.
Yeah, but there is the money has to go down, and everybody knows the benefit. We all sit in our planning meetings, and we all come into the meeting and say, "Hey, the first thing that we need to do is have clean data." Everybody says, "Yes, we need to have clean data," and by the time we finish the meeting, that initiative, which was number one of clean data, from one it becomes the 10th initiative, and we still work with compromised data. So yes, as organizations, if we are committed, if we show our action, then yes, we should be able to do that.
Got it. So thank you.
Okay, good. So we've got a few people, 1, 2, 3 of you done. That's awesome. Can we have the others also do it? Okay, great, wonderful. So I think more or less 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Lovely. 8 out of 13. 5 of you, please fill it out. And as we close, guys, so how was your day one today? Was the first half said it was good? Was it the same in the second half as well? Okay. Cool. Awesome. So I'm glad that it went out to be productive for all of us. And we, with that thought, let's move ahead. Enjoy your Sunday, and look forward to seeing you in our second session, which is I don't remember the date, but let's look forward to you for the second session. Thank you. Take care.